Moon Jae-in has clearly set himself apart from previous leaders of this nation in a variety of ways leading up to this point of his relatively young presidency. Kim Min-ji explains how he further raised the bar in that respect through his brand of open and candid press conference.
The New Year's press conference was held in a freestyle manner, with neither questions nor questioners chosen in advance. Journalists had to try and make eye contact with the president to get his attention. And although the press conference was non-scripted, President Moon was readily able to respond to the questions.
We could say it was the most successful freestyle press conference we've seen in Korean history. Although journalists' questions were more focused on pending issues rather than in the order of subjects set by the Blue House, it was an opportunity for journalists to ask things they're really concerned about.
The president's 20-minute speech and hour-long Q&A session was used to expound on his vision for boosting the quality of people's lives, and also touched upon some difficult and heavy issues, such as the 2015 deal between South Korea and Japan on the sex slave issue, as well as a North Korea nuclear issue. On the agreement with Tokyo, it was an occasion for the president to talk about his stance, making very clear that the deal is not satisfactory and saying the Korean government will do its utmost to restore the victims' dignity.
The president's position of using South Korea's own finances to heal the wounds of the victims seems as though he's sending a message to Japan that it should be ashamed of its wrongdoings and the fact they aren't taking full responsibility. It's more of an ethical approach than a diplomatic one.
On North Korea, President Moon vowed to stick with a two-track approach, continuing to support dialogue, but at the same time pressuring the regime with sanctions until it takes a path of denuclearization. Experts say, unlike his predecessors who had somewhat far-fetched goals, such as unification, the aim during his term is to maintain peace on the peninsula. They also pointed out that the president is doing a good job juggling Washington and Pyongyang.
President Moon is now pursuing North-South Korea relations and U.S.-South Korea alliance altogether simultaneously. I mean, previously, conservative or progressive governments only focused on either of these two things, but he's trying to minimize the risks of any kinds of diplomatic loopholes that we can expect from any diplomatic relationship with any other kinds of countries. So I think his balanced way of pursuing the relationship with the United States and with North Korea, I think is very desirable portions of our diplomacy.
The general consensus among experts is that the president had a lot on his plate during the past 8 months, with a string of international summits, the fallout from the deal with Japan, North Korea's continued provocations, and constitutional revision, which sometimes overshadowed important issues like people's livelihoods. In the second year of his term, experts say he needs to allow enough time and attention for all these issues, and they say reporters should ask bolder and more in-depth questions that the Korean people are curious about, especially in such an open setting with a president who is comfortable communicating and sharing his ideas. Kim Min-ji, Arirang News.